TIL researchers at a base in Antarctica started to develop a new accent. This usually happens when you isolate people from different places in a new environment. This kinda reminds me of when I went to Ireland for a year and made friends with a bunch of other Spanish speakers. We ended up with a sort of Spanish dialect mixing expressions from each of our regions, English and Irish common expressions. It came naturally to us because we adapted to the environment Ireland, but applied language from the people we surrounded ourselves with, as well as their own. I could see it happening, and not taking a whole lot of time. I lived in Atlanta after being raised on the West Coast for about 6 months, working in a cubicle with 3 local women with heavy Southern accents. We talked a lot and our job involved talking a lot, and I picked up a bit of accent, especially in common little things like saying thank you and how are you? 20 years later they've still kind of stuck. I honestly have noticed this in very niche communities. Like Nalo pros all have a weird accent they use when saying certain words and phrases. My theory is so many players are imported from Korea a bunch of weird accents developed from multiple people on a team working on their English together with vastly different beginning accents. Go listen to knockoff streamers. I can't unhear it and it drives me insane. When I was in college there was a teacher who could tell where you were from by just hearing you talk. He couldn't figure me out, though. And my hometown was just a half hour down the road. Texan, but no Texas twang. The part of Texas I'm from was heavily Texas German, and I spoke the way everyone did from my area. We humans adapt to our environment. I have a British friend who lived in the UK for 12 years before moving to here in Canada. Here, his accent is greatly diminished, but anytime he visits the UK and comes back, his accent is noticeably stronger when he comes back then slowly fades away again after some time. These findings suggest that the phonetic attributes of a spoken accent in its initial stages emerge through interactions between individuals, causing speech production to be incrementally updated. No SHT, Sherlock. Next there will be a study that finds that recipes are shared from one human to another. My friend who does research there was in our local market in USA and all she said is swarm. Swarm, which I thought swarm. Did she uncover an ancient mosquito in the ice that will be the latest apocalypses? Nope. It was a very warm burrito she was holding thankfully. My Australian cousin visited for the summer, and I started speaking English with his accent whenever spoke to him and he thought I was making fun of him. I literally had to consciously fix my accent back to normal when I speak to him. My pop used to do this and it's drive me bonkers. He was legit and aware and it was innocent and not racist, but OMG it would just irk me to no end when he'd kinda sorta adapt his speaking style to whom he was speaking. There's a child character on Joe Parrot Talks With You that was raised on an Antarctic research base and explains that's why he has an odd accent. Till that was based on a real thing and not just a random gag. I feel like if you look at language west to east from Portugal to China you can see it gradually change as in a spectrum. How you ultimately speak has to do with where you are physically. This reminds me about their language and Expanse series. One day, when people from many backgrounds will live isolated in space, they will surely also develop their own accent or language. Reminds me why we all know Ollie Ollie Oxenfree, but it's a phrase that means nothing but was mashed together by kids playing hide and seek in NYC and most of them not knowing English. I know this sounds dumb, but can weather and room humidity change someone's pronunciation of words by affecting the vocal cords and thus create different accents dialects? This is what happens when you take the dumb out of English. Having a bunch of smart people together enunciating things and pronouncing things correctly. Reminds me of that time I binged the show Fargo and spoke with a Minnesota accent for like 2 months. Same thing happened after I watched Letterkenny. I wonder how it compares to languages that developed in other cold and or dry regions of the world? Certain sounds would be easier or harder to make. I once met someone with an unusual accent that sounded French but not quite, so I asked him where he was from. He told me he had a speech impediment. Our 3-person household developed a slight accent and distinct phrases over COVID lockdown. 2 years of isolation and homeschooling was a trip. I imagine something like this. The Bears. That is a long damn report about how something sounds without any audio files to demonstrate how it sounds. If the speakers continue to be isolated, the differences will eventually result in a different language. Betting there was one influential person out there and people all started adopting their tone over time. This is just a fake study, so when the thing alien escapes and talks a little funny we just accept it. My brother never leaves the house and his only socialization is online. He has an American accent. This happens to me when I hang out with people from the US for an extended period of time. Lamau, like that friend that goes to England for a month and comes back with an accent for a year. Probably the effects of the neutrino detector. Nothing to see here. Just extraterrestrials having difficulty with human speech. Yes, so basically the same as any white girl after being overseas for 2 weeks. The Antarctic bases are very multinational. I'm sure that has an impact too. It's noted that they make many chirps and caws similar to penguins. When it's cold, your teeth chatter, making it hard to talk clearly. I mean, it must be hard to talk upside down all the time, so yeah, when I say a word over and over I start to say it differently. Is there a video or anything where I can hear this accent? Just as long as they only have one word for wood chipper. This happened to me in college when I joined a frat U. TLDR, people start sounding like people they hang with. Being taken over by a shape-shifting alien will do that.